Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app.
Portfolio construction and risk management are tasks that take you away from where you need to be, building relationships with your clients. Aberdeen Standard Investments can support you by creating bespoke investment solutions. Outsourcing portfolio and risk management creates efficiencies, enabling you to focus on fulfilling the ambitions of both your clients and your business. This podcast has been prepared with care based on sources believed to be reliable, and all opinions expressed are honestly held at the applicable date. However, it is general information only, and we accept no liability for any errors or omissions. It's been prepared without taking into account the particular objectives, financial situation, or needs of any investor. Investing involves risk, including the risk of losing capital. It's important that before acting, investors should consider their own circumstances, objectives, and financial situation, the information's appropriateness to them, and consult financial and tax advisors. Investors should consider the PDS available at aberdeenstandard.com before making an investment decision. Products issued by Aberdeen Standard Investments Australia Limited, ABN 5900212334, AFSL number 204263.
Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm your host, Fraser Jack, and today we are wrapping up the Scale Up series. This is episode 10 in what has been a really great series. I've really much enjoyed it, and I'm joined by Con and Jason from Aberdeen. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Now, I thought I might give you guys...
Fraser. Lovely to be here.
Just give you a quick introduction to yourselves and let us know whereabouts you how you fit into the picture. You might go first, Con.
Thanks, Fraser. Yeah, so Koromilas. I head up the wholesale sales business for Aberdeen Standard here in Sydney. I've been with Aberdeen for 13 years, but in the industry for 26. So seen a lot of change over that period of time. And, you know, we distribute our investment capabilities into the wholesale advisor market and family office. And we also have transitioned the business to also look from an advisory perspective in terms of partner-like firms that we can talk about later in terms of helping them scale up and deliver better outcomes for their clients.
Fantastic. So you're working directly with planners around the country?
Correct, yeah.
Excellent. And Jace, what about you? Where do you fit in?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm Jason Nyilas. I head up the retirement and product strategy for Aberdeen Standard Investments. I've been there 2 years. I've been in the industry for 30 plus. And my role is really to bring retirement income solutions into the market in Australia. And we're doing that in a combination of bringing digital up front in terms of customizing those solutions and providing particular product solutions at the back end.
Fantastic. I'm really keen to get into this because, digital, bionic, let's say, solutions and how we can bring sort of those conversations out into the mainstream consumers within Australia, not just those that have the luxury of getting financial advice. So we'll get stuck into that shortly. But to start with, I thought we might quickly wrap up the series. This is episode 10 in the series. But if we go back to the first episode, speaking with Natasha Janssens, regarding the concept of, how to scale up a business by really developing a community and looking at ways where she can engage with people, not so much one-on-one, but one-to-many. What were your thoughts around that one, Jace?
This is a really good concept, Fraser. I think in our industry, one of the things that we get insecure of is too much information or not enough information, and having peer groups where you can discuss issues and your anxieties and your fears and what should you do next, and are you in a good zone or how do you get into a good zone? That's a really, really important thing. And I think whichever direction you go, whether it's through focus groups or using the media or blogs or whatever, I think this is a really powerful way of changing behavior in the industry for savings and financial outcomes.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Just that support network of, people that have been there before, people that are sort of at the same pace as you and giving you that encouragement is great. There's a lot around the idea that she did around sort of values-based coaching. Con, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I agree a lot with what Jason said there. I mean, the interesting part for me is that obviously, whether you call it technology or the way we communicate these, it's a very natural place to start looking at adding value to whether it's end customers or our peers, etc., it just naturally leads to be able to develop something like this. And Natasha's done a great job, obviously, in bringing it together and delivering outcomes in a sort of usual way now, if you like, but in a way that actually adds true value into what we're trying to achieve. And I think that's the important part out of what I took from Natasha, in the sense that it really delivers through areas that we now engage with, outcomes that people can focus on and improve, whether that's their money aspects or how to think about their aspirations in terms of their goals for life.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that point you just made there, that I picked up on, which was, it is actually a bit more of a usual way these days. It was sort of a way in the past. It's always been, if you want to have a community, you really need them to gather in the same place at the same time. But now, of course, they do that online, which is fantastic.
It can be anywhere, can't they? Yeah.
Yep. So this brings us to, I guess, the second episode in the series, where I spoke to Sue Viskovic from Alexa Consulting, and around the concept of really understanding your numbers in your business, understanding your target market, understanding the business planning process, and just making sure that you're servicing, you understand your cost to serve and you're servicing the right type of clients for both, the cash flow profitability side of the business and also for higher business valuations. And then providing you, knowing what you know now, providing you that ability to grow and scale. What were your thoughts, Jace?
This is one I think we've all been part of in the last 12 months of the pandemic. And what we've seen, I think, in terms of what Sue's saying, is really coming back to what are the fundamentals of the business when you're in the situation where you can't actually conduct business as normal, and what are the economics? And we saw a lot of online changes and reorganization of that. I think what's really happened, and I think what Sue's alluding to, is this whole digital acceleration now that's taking place as part of the pandemic, and the need to understand the customer a lot more and to align your strategy and your digital direction, your business direction, and integrate fully into their business. And the more connected you are, the more the economics work. And we've seen it, in a lot of the supply chains for food and all sorts of things. I think this was always on the cards, Fraser, but it's something which I think has just accelerated in the pandemic. And I think it's good for business and good long term. And it's something which we always wanted to do. And I think Sue's hit it right on the head in terms of the direction it's going in.
Yeah, absolutely. She sort of alluded a little bit to also the idea of, making sure that advisors and planners looked after themselves as well, from a mental health point of view, which was not a bad not a bad advice. What were your thoughts on that episode, Con?
Yeah, look, I did pick up on that, and I'll touch on that point. But with the value proposition side of things, obviously we deal with a lot of licensees, and it's been there for a while, but there's this heavy focus on the businesses that they work with to make sure that they have their business and value proposition down pat, so they understand what they're trying to achieve, how they're servicing their clients, how that flows through eventual profitability in the business. Because as we all know, you can be fantastic at your job, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to transfer to a successful business. So, you really need to understand and get beneath the bottom of what you're trying to achieve. And some of that does come back to that final point you made, Fraser, around, advisors and just everybody looking after their health and well-being in terms of being able to execute on that longer term goal. I mean, sometimes we do forget that, right? We work long hours, forget to exercise, whatever it is that works for people to help them mentally be set to achieve their goals, longer term for their business and obviously for their clients. And so that is a total picture. And Sue does a great job in communicating this, through many circles, and is a leader in this space. But that is the one big thing that we do forget, right? We do forget to look after ourselves. And it does come back to, that is the key element to make sure you're successful in yourself, and then drive that through your business and to the eventual benefit of your clients.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It definitely all starts with if you're the business owner and the manager and the advisor. It starts with you, right? It starts with making sure that you're okay and that you're focusing on the right things, and you are running a sustainable, profitable business. So Brilliant. We let's kick into episode 3. We spoke with David Pettit from Picture Wealth, talking about technology, and obviously this is we all love talking about ways and and technology and about data and structures and understanding how the client experience is wrapped around this concept of how do we make our businesses more effective, more efficient by using technology and also making sure that we improve the client experience along the way. Jason, what are your thoughts?
I think the way of the future in most businesses is whatever traditionally we've done, we have to become owners of data, understanding data, and communicating with data better. So for me, that's a really key part of what David's saying for the industry going forward. And I also like this concept of and I think, Fraser, last time you might have alluded to this, the goals under management concept, which is a much more effective way visually, I think, of even saying how you actually manage money better. And traditionally, I think he's trying to break the mold of funds under management and traditional ways of providing advice. I think he's really got a few really good ideas about where the industry is inevitably going to go with data and how you actually manage those goals.
Yeah, I definitely love the goals under management, and I know you guys are doing a lot in the goals-based advice space as well, and making sure that everything does align back to those goals under management. And I know, obviously, you work for a fund manager, if you like, or a global fund manager. So you do have to focus on the concept of what your assets under management are and those sorts of things. But I think we need to break that chain when we're, having the conversation with our clients and on the front line with the marketing that we do, outward marketing, we need to make sure that we're actually looking after the client's outcomes, not just and their goals, not just necessarily, their money. In a way, Con, that's the jobs of the asset managers, right, to look after the money.
Look, yeah, I mean, this is a really super important concept, actually. When we as a business, engage with our clients, and we've spoken before, we're looking for like-minded firms to partner with, and it's very much about this goals-based approach, where we need to think a little bit differently of how we're executing our strategies for the end benefit of our clients. And this talks directly to that. It's a beautiful way to put it, where we, you're right in a lot of ways. We do measure ourselves with funds under management and so on, but that focus around what we're trying to achieve for our clients and whether we're having success or not, changing that conversation and it being more around that goals focus, because that's really what clients are about, right? They've got goals, aspirations, and that's what they're looking to achieve. And if we don't talk the same language along the way, we do miss the point sometimes. So when we can connect it, and this is a great way to do it, by having a target around goals under management, and it's just a twist on what we're doing, but a really important one, I think. So yeah, this is great stuff that's been thought out here, and stuff that we align with 100% in terms of where we want to align portfolios and so on for what advisors want to achieve for their clients.
Yeah, exactly. And Jason, just on this, because part of what we talked about in that series was the concept around time saving and using technology to free up or save time. How do you see this going with regards to obviously the traditional advice model has been very time consuming, and that has been something that has pushed the price up and made it less affordable for the average person in the street to get advice. So how do you see technology working in this space with regards to really reducing that time to advice?
That's a really important question you're raising. The way we see this going forward is, while face-to-face will always exist, there needs to be another mechanism for actually getting to a wider range of Australians, both in savings and retirement. And we believe the way to do that is to combine automation or digital automation with human advice and put it in the hands of the clients so they better understand what needs to be done. And face-to-face advice can be 20 plus hours using paraplanners to put everything together. If you provide the right sort of digital journey from the client perspective that actually builds up their goal statements and allows them to model themselves and get education along the way, they can actually do a lot of that work themselves and have a much better understanding of themselves personally. And we think if we provide that in a way which is easy to understand and easy to use, and combine that when the client wants with an advice piece through an advisor. We're calling this bionic. We think there's a great need in the industry to change the way we do things. So combining automation with whatever human advice is needed will reduce the price points for advice and will allow more clients to get access to the right kind of advice. So we see this as a game changer in the industry and a way which we have to move to. It's an inevitable way we've got to go. And I think the points that we're making also here is that we need to actually put it in place rather than talk about the theory of this. And that's one of the things we're working on, and I know we'll come on and talk about as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, there's definitely, you're absolutely right about putting it in place. And that's been one of the hard parts, to put it in place in a way where consumers can still engage in it and in what can be quite a confronting and confusing environment and a lot of questions to be asked. It can be quite difficult to get that client experience right as well. Now let's move on to episode 4. I spoke to Judith Beck, and we focused really on the idea or the concept around to scale your business effectively and efficiently. You sort of need to focus on getting the right people, or the people with the right attitudes, or that what we call that top 10% of behaviours. What were your thoughts, Con?
Yeah, look, in terms of this particular space, it's when I think about this, I mean, we sometimes talk about thinking and acting like an owner, as employees of a firm, and to me that's quite important, because you do want people that have that mindset when they're working within you, so they're actually going on the journey properly. They're not just checking in and checking out. And it's not that easy always with the different roles that people play within firms and organizations. But, that sort of mindset for me is quite important, because it says a lot around the direction of where the business is going, the connectedness of all the individuals within that particular firm and what they're trying to achieve together. And that ownership, if you like, will permeate in a lot of benefits, down the track for the business. So, so to me, that's important. There's also, you don't want everyone at the same level, right? You want people that are developing at different paces and different outcomes. You want men and women in roles, so you can get their different perspectives and different views, proper balance within an organization to deliver over the long term. So yeah, an important topic for us at Aberdeen Standard, but also just generally to maximize outcomes within a business.
Yeah, we did. She does cover a lot in her book, No Sex at Work, which has been recently released. But that was obviously having the conversations around, how men and women do bring different things to the workforce, but also how a lot of the time, her book goes into a lot of the idea of how sometimes people self-sabotage themselves and, out of some of those roles. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for a lot of people, I think, as well, just making sure that as you said, it's important for organisations to understand that different people have different needs and how some of those organisations are going about it. What were your thoughts, Jason?
I find this topic personally one of the most interesting to look at in the workplace, because I think as we get older, and Con and I are getting on a bit, but not that old, when you have skills that you can provide and you've learnt those skills over a few years and even decades, those skills in the modern workplace, with what we've seen with the pandemic, are actually more important in the long run. And providing those skills across the organization and having the ability to have reservoirs of huge knowledge is absolutely vital. I think we've always come from the perspective that, as you get older, you move out with the conveyor belt, you drop off at the end as a cliff, and away you go into retirement. I know we're going to come on and talk about that. But I think we're going to reshape the way things are. We're going to live to much longer. And the older you get, perhaps the more valuable you can become if you know how to become valuable. And I think, as long as you understand technology and digital and your role, I think the whole idea of hierarchy within an organization and gender bias has to fade away. And we've got to get into an area where we're much more driven by having a network of subject matter experts and people who've been there before, who can really help and equalize, I think, the workforce and make it high performance by doing that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And she certainly covers that with a lot of her passionate work that she's done over the years with Financial Executive Women, or FEW, if you like, FEW, around that, that whole concept of that mentorship and understanding from people that have been through things before you, just how to get the most out of it. So, yeah, that was a really interesting episode. I enjoyed that. I had a great conversation with Judith around that concept of making sure you're getting the most out of the people that you do have with you, and if you are one of those people, then you getting the most out of your workplace, so that everyone can perform at a really high level. Definitely enjoyed that. Now the next episode in the series, episode 5, was with Paul Feeney. We got right back into and geeked out on the digital advice concept again, which we do, and I know Jason you enjoy. So I'll let you go first on this one.
Thank you. Well, this brings together a few of the concepts we're talking about, I think. And Paul's an example of somebody who not just talked about it years before this became a hot topic, but actually did something. And I take my hat off to him in terms of the timing of what he did and how he went about it. And what he's actually done, which I really admire, is he's seen the issue in the market with high-cost advice and the lack of impartial advice, and he's created a really economic, level playing field through digital technology to be able to get the information you want and make it available to and scale up in terms of the large super funds or wherever at an individual level. And he's built on that concept, that really simple concept, and really built this into something which has incredible legs, is easy to understand, and is available to everybody. So I can't take my hat off to him enough.
Yeah. Now I want to also touch on the concept that building technology platforms, and we sort of did it obviously in the episode, but it's not easy. There is a lot of different moving parts pulling you from one side to another. It all costs a lot of money, of course, to produce, and Paul sort of had to shake the can a few times, obviously, with regards to finding investors to keep putting money in, and it's an interesting one, isn't it, Jason, when it comes to building a software, because you can dig a really big hole and throw lots of money in it if you're not careful.
That's exactly right. These are not overnight successes. So the idea might be really, really revolutionary and the timing is good, but it takes more than just a few years to get these things to a critical scale. And in Paul's case, he was talking about this years in advance and kept beating the traps through Stone and Chalk and others, and talking to the industry. And like other platforms in the market, I can think of things like Hub24, that is a great platform, but took years to actually mature. And these things are driven by people with a vision, people who don't give up, that believe in everything and move forward. And there's a lot of great ideas and people who started things out there that didn't make it. And Paul's an example of one of those who did. And you're absolutely right. The perseverance and the funding and ongoing belief on a day-to-day basis to get these things to happen is perhaps even more important in some ways than just the concept itself.
Yep, fantastic. What were your thoughts, Con?
Yeah, really, Jay's covered a lot of points around the technology and why it's important. So, from my perspective with this, and having the experience as well, working on our digital solution with Jason, is that, regulation can make things difficult as well. So, there's good ideas. They can solve a particular problem that's in our market, but there's rigidity around how you need to bring that to market. And there's a lot of compliance structure, and rightly so, but it can make it difficult for something that's mass scale to get out into the market and serve the outcome that it's designed to do. And I suspect over time why things take a little bit longer than normal as well is that there's a lot of navigating that side of the equation. So getting it right and having the perseverance, and all credit to Paul for doing that. It takes time. You go through ups and downs, and then you have hopefully something that can be taken to market. It can be robust and deliver the outcomes. And I do we've had a little bit of the theme going through some of these, but we had, goals under management, and the measure for success here, in terms of Paul was, how many people they help, quite honorable ways of looking at the outcomes that you want to achieve. A business that's not necessarily listed on a stock exchange that has to report to shareholders can actually have a slightly more purist endeavor in terms of what it wants to try and achieve. And these, over time, they develop and they scale up and potentially become very, very big businesses. But early on, the premise behind it is an honourable one. And this, again, has that same flavour in terms of what it's trying to achieve to get mass advice out to clients.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on with that, Con, on the concept of the regulation. But not just the regulation, is it? It's like the regulation was one thing because that's in black and white. It was fairly easy, I guess. Not easy, but it was like in black and white. But then the adoption of licensees and to then to be able to allow it or bring it in. How have you obviously that's been part of his struggle, not just creating the concept and getting off the ground, but also the concept of the adoption and speaking to planners. And in a way, we can be fairly stuck in our ways, can't we? Because of the compliance regime we've been through, we can be pretty stuck in our ways and not want to change too much too quickly.
Yeah. I mean, Jace, I know Jace is smiling there because I can see him. So he can talk to this definitely. But you're absolutely right in terms of licensees taking on the solution. They have to be comfortable from their compliance perspective and how that's going to roll out. So there is that dual level, right? You have the solution that's gone through robustness to deliver what it's trying to deliver, and then you have to then fit it into the licensees or the end group that takes up the solution that wants to deliver it to advisors. And that's not always easy to implement from the other end. Jace, I know you've got some thoughts on this, so I'll pass on to you as well.
Thanks, Con. I think Paul's journey is also mirrors somewhat ours as well. I've found that with the deployment of digital technology in the new way of doing things, regulation often in compliance doesn't actually help accelerate anything and can be very costly to be compliant. So traditionally where the compliance is written, it's still an expensive business to run with compliance. With digital technologies, there's an extra risk. It's a new dimension to the whole thing. And that's why very few people in the market have been successful with launching advice-based products into the market. And added to that, in terms of what both you, Con, and you, Craig, are talking about, is the fact that each advice group has a different nuance for what compliance looks like, what should be in the SOA, how to interact with the client. There's no standardization in the industry. So when you try and look to standardize these things, it can become very, very tricky to do so. And I think every single firm has its own take on what to do for compliance and has its own idiosyncrasies, which does mean we don't get consistency in the industry.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a fairly the consistent thing is that we're all inconsistent, I guess. Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jason. Now, the next episode we spoke to Michael Laws, who is the National Manager of Business Coaching with the FINIA, looking after many of their FINIA advisors. And we really got deep into the concept of, looking at business frameworks around, making sure that the client experience was there, but that the actual business was set up in a way where the time management was well structured. There was focus on the right things. People or advisors spending not just time focus with clients, but also focusing on times working on the business, whether that be practical terms of the business or whether that be entrepreneurial blue sky thinking. Con, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, a couple of things for me. Obviously, there's the bit that Michael talks about in terms of how clients find you, which is quite important in the sense that websites and how it looks and how it feels and the language that's used and the images that are used are quite important. For a client that's coming in a sense from out of the blue and searching for advice, lands on web pages and looks for stuff. So that's important. And then the ongoing relationship for me is a big one, because when you think about advisors and their clients, the they're going to be clients for life, hopefully. So it's a long journey. You want to build over time with that relationship that you have with clients, and the focus there to try and make sure that you build out a robust structure there so that, clients feel, a little bit corny, I'm going to say, but, part of the family in some ways, that real, touch that advisors can have in building out and getting outcomes for clients, right? We hear a lot of good stories with, long-term relationships where advisors have truly helped their clients. The news always focuses on that story that's not, has not worked out as well as we all would have liked. But, almost all scenarios are where advisors have truly helped their clients achieve their outcomes. And, that comes down to relationship and understanding what drives your clients and having, connectedness in trying to achieve that together. So to me, they're sort of two key important points.
Yeah, absolutely.
One at the beginning and one at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. And just the ongoing relationship is huge, and I think we're in a relationship business, and we need to understand if you're going to be providing ongoing financial advice that we need to, and that's probably one of the things that consumers don't necessarily understand when they walk in. We sort of need to qualify whether are you after a transaction or are you after a long-term a relationship where someone's going to have your back all the way through to make you to reach your goals. So I think that's sort of one of the qualifying questions that we need to do maybe more in the pre-advice part that you mentioned, of just quantifying and qualifying what those things look like for consumers to be able to make that decision very early on. And also on this, the pre-advice piece, because I'll get you to comment on this one, Jace, is a lot of it's online. We're now developing relationships online, especially after the last 12 months where we've sort of had to communicate that way. And, I sort of think that relationships develop slower online because you're not in that proximity where you're, physically shaking somebody's hand or sitting quite close to them across a small table or whatever it might be. And when you're in that proximity with somebody, you tend to develop a relationship a little bit faster. That trust becomes a bit faster. But online, it still happens. It just takes more time. So from a, using technology piece, Jason, getting that stuff right at the beginning to make sure that you're providing some sort of consistent and regular, helpful process around so that they're getting something from you to develop trust in the relationship. What are your thoughts on this?
This is something that we have looked at as well, and we are building a solution for, because this is fundamental to acquiring new clients now in the new world. And what we're finding is that it's easy once people are in the digital funnel, if I can call it that. But it's how you initially engage with them to get them in the funnel. What is the secret sauce that does that? And this is where I think the new, if you like, battleground is for new clients to get ongoing relationships. It's all about. And what we've focused on in this regard is really the whole behavioral aspects of how we get a particular prospective client to actually think about engaging, to understand what they're going to be talking about and simplify the whole thing up front. Very often, I think clients don't understand advice. They've never had it. They don't know what it's about. And I think you made the point, do they want a relationship, a transaction? And they probably don't know, because this is a big kind of black hole. So we've worked on what is that engagement secret sauce to get people in. A lot of people, once you know them, have great ways of having relationships and building rapport. That's what the industry is about. It's that initial thing. And I think technology then is the next generation of how you deal with volume-based scaling up type of approaches. But no one's really cracked the engagement piece yet, I think, in terms of actually what does that mean to do.
Yeah, certainly right. And there's as you mentioned, the idea of technology is that you can engage people at scale. It's very difficult to do that unless you're speaking in a room full of people. But technology's allowed us to be able to speak to a room full of people. Just for this podcast, is a great example. We're speaking to a lot of people who are consuming this content in their own time, in their own place, not necessarily brought together in the room at the one time. But, these are the sort of things that technology can allow us to do over a longer period of time.
Exactly.
That probably brings us to one of the most important concepts around, around what we talked about in this series of Scale Up. And this is in episode 7 where I spoke to Michael Back. Michael Back, of course, coached many financial planners, runs a business called Human to Human. But we really honed in on the concept of implementing and putting things in place because, Jason, Colin, we've all seen great ideas. We've all seen people talk about great things and think that'd be amazing, that'd be incredible. But the proof's in the pudding, right? It's if you actually implement them, then they're likely to work. It's a bit like, I suppose, when financial planners give their clients financial advice. If it's not implemented, then there was actually it didn't help anybody. So we really focused in on the concept of being able to find something that's going to provide scale to your business, but then actually putting it in place. What were your thoughts, Con?
Yeah, look, this is something that a lot of people grapple with, right? In our personal lives sometimes, and obviously in our business lives. And from our perspective at Aberdeen Standard, we've consciously taken a big focus on this because it can be, when you're doing your day-to-day and you're dealing with your clients, if you're a financial planner, and we're dealing with our clients who are financial planners, you're sort of going through the day-to-day. And sometimes you're not thinking about what's the longer-term play and what should be delivering to the market. And this will be very, Jace is obviously a great example in what we've done to execute something from scratch in terms of the digital side that we're bringing to market, where it's something new, and to execute that, great ideas, but to execute it through an organization such as ours, it takes a lot of steps. And that's a phenomenal example of how that can come together. And we've done the same thing at a more simple level around, what capabilities do we have globally that makes sense for our local market. It's very easy to just continue on with what you've traditionally done in your local market and not think about, how can we further assist advisors and asset consultants and asset allocators to deliver better outcomes from an investment portfolio perspective. And if you're not, then the idea is always there, but the implementation is not. And if it's not part of your, I'll say culture, I don't mean it exactly in that way, but if it's not part of your process, and I think Michael talks about it a little bit, where you need to have a clear understanding. I think he was talking about having the capability, and then whether you want to do it. So you really need to assess the value it's going to add, and then make a decision that you're going to do it, and then have the resources to be able to execute. So it's quite an important area to really drive a business forward to achieve its outcomes.
Yeah, Jason, that's probably the process you've been through as well, is it? Making sure you're clear on what you want to deliver and finding the capabilities within whether that's the financial or people or humans or whatever it might be, and then having the motivation to push through all the obstacles.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think the point here is that having a vision is important. Having an exciting vision is important. But knowing how to provide regular, practical implementations of what that is, being agile in a sense, changing the way you work internally to achieve that. On our own journey, I'd just like to give you an example. When we were building the solution we're launching in a couple of months, a lot of people we talk to in the industry, these are financial planners, these are licensees, said to us, we had another group come and talk to us and build this, and they were building it, but they ran out of money because they didn't know how to put it in place in time, or the compliance was so difficult, they went on, couldn't work out how to crack it, and in the end, they decided not to take the risk for being non-compliant and launching something. So I think there's a trade-off here between having a great vision and being practical about what it is you're trying to achieve. And that's something I think we're all struggling with in the industry. But the main point is, if you don't have anything in place, then having great thoughts, knowledge, thought leadership only goes so far. It doesn't take you to the next level.
Yep. He also mentioned as he's done before, the OKRs system, which is objectives and key results, and really focusing on the concept that if you understand what your key results are, what your objectives are, and then just set about, as you mentioned before, in that agile way where you put a sprint down and just go, right, well, let's just go and make sure we focus on these things and get that in place, which I thought was fantastic. So this brings us to the episode 8 in the Scale Up series, where I spoke to James Wortley, who's really doing something different with his thinking in the client experience space. He's adopting technology, not technology that's not available to every single one of us. In fact, technology that is almost free, if not slightly paid, for us all to use in that video and video recording software, to use a new level of thinking and saying, well, how can we look after our clients in a way where we provide them an experience that is much better, but we're also using technology. So he's created the video statement of advice, which frees up a heck of a lot of time from their business and time and effort, as well as providing a better client experience. So it's really just taking technologies that are available to us all and just creating this new process around the video statement of advice, which his clients are loving, which is very interesting. And I think a lot of people will start adopting in the future. What were your thoughts, Con?
I love this stuff. To me, it's sort of just really taking, the summary that might be on paper of the statement of advice, because obviously the statement of advice can go over many pages, and as much as clients need to read that, it's questionable that a client would spend the time. They'll focus on the summary and understand what's being put in place, and this just brings it to life, right? To give you an example, we do the same thing with our clients where we engage on an advisory perspective. We do video recordings of what we would normally present in the investment committee meeting of how the portfolios perform, what the review is, the outlook, etc. And you do that in a short 8 to 12 minute video. And this is, in bite sizes that they can use with their clients as well. So it's not just for the advisor, it's delivered in a way that can push down through to clients so they can get a perspective of what's going on. So this is great stuff in the sense that, it just simplifies things for the client. It engages them a lot more. It gets them wedded, I think, one, to what's being delivered, and also to that advice practice, because it's being made as simple as possible for them to understand what's being put in place. And then from an ongoing perspective, I'm not sure what the ongoing perspective is, but I suspect they may do something similar, in terms of messaging to their clients what's transpired, etc. They may end up adopting an approach on an ongoing basis. But this is super powerful stuff for advisors in terms of, changing their business in a very simple way. I think you mentioned it's not new technology in any way. It's just using things that are at our hands to just deliver a better experience. So that's, perfect stuff from James. Yeah.
Yeah. I really felt that this is something that can be easily adopted. It's not a great outlay in cost. You need to make sure you've got a camera that can capture your image clearly, and you need to make sure that you've got a microphone where people can hear you properly. But that's not a great outlay. And Con, as you mentioned, just the concept of creating short videos from an investment management point of view and sending that out to advisors for them to be able to use, but understand what's going on from an investment point of view, but then also relate it to the clients. How good is that for scale? Like you record that once and you send the same video out.
Yeah, no, exactly right. It is the most efficient way where we can deliver an outcome to an advisor where they can push it out as far as they want. So, one of the groups that we deal with puts it on their website, provides a link to all their clients to gain access to that particular update. So that exactly right. It basically permeates through everybody, and they can consume it, as we've been speaking earlier, at their own time and when they, feel most at hand to go over a video such as that. When they've got a bit of free time, not at a time that has been set where we want to get them in a room and deliver that particular update. It's consumed on their time. So yeah, absolutely, it's brilliant stuff.
Yeah, and Jason, you've worked with a lot of licensees around, structuring what should be in a statement of advice and how technology can play a part. And obviously, a lot of licensees are still in the space where it's got to be written, I guess you could say. But what are your thoughts on technology and the SOA?
I think this is great. What I particularly like is you pointed out, it's not new technology, but it's the experience of using this technology in this way. And to get a parallel, we do this in the UK. We do have some of our clients that we do videos for, but they are slightly different. I'll just explain what we've done. We've used animation in ours. So instead of actually having a video recording of someone talking to you, the example we give is someone's on a bicycle and they're sort of going along this path, and the voiceover is explaining what you've said on your client digital journey, what you've put in, what you want, what your goal aspirations are. And then it collects various people along the way and things. And it ends up, as it's talking to you, with the finishing line there. And the bicycle, depending on what you put in, either falls short of the finishing line or meets it. So it actually says to you, given what you've told us today, you're not quite there. So if you do the following things, we think you could get there. And likewise, if you've done all the right things, we think you've done the right things. And maybe there's some other things to look at as well. So it really not only gets volume out, but it also gives incredible personalization in a succinct, short way.
Yeah. Now I have this, as you say, that I have this vision of, the future where a lot of these animations are done in very short form, but are dynamic enough to form part of the journey. So the journey actually is co-created by the client as they're putting the information in, co-creates the journey, and the video is smart enough to dynamically change the outcome of the video depending on what it might be. So I can just, I have this vision that in the future that could be how statements of advice are provided to clients, which would amazingly bring, the price down. The whole idea of, charging thousands of dollars for an SOA fee could be out the window.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And a lot more exciting too.
Yeah, exactly right. And probably more engaging, I would say.
Everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us to the episode 9 in the Scale Up series, where we really focus. I spoke to Hayley Knight, who runs a outsourced power planning business. But the main concept around this episode was the idea of, outsourcing and finding the right people in that space of outsourcing. Con, I might let you take this one because you're sort of working with a lot of advisors at the moment around, an outsourcing solution. Yeah.
So look, I think when I sort of think through Hayley's podcast, I think one of the things that comes out is, I like the concept that she talks about, the first impressions, because I'm one that, you don't always necessarily get it right, but first impressions are a pretty good indicator of potentially whether you're going to get on with someone or whether you see eye to eye, etc. There can be certain signposts in those early interactions. So I think the focus there is quite important. But, in terms of when you're looking at outsourcing certain parts of your business, I think, understanding, so getting that first impression, but then understanding what you're trying to achieve and whether you can gel with that person to generate the outcome. So, we've spoken before around what we do with partners that we want to work with. We're not open for everybody. We're trying to deal with people that we have similar ideas in what we want to try and achieve. Our conversation is the same in how we want to build out those portfolios, and there's just an efficiency gain by them partnering with us to deliver those outcomes for their clients, and that's quite important. I think if you can't go after price necessarily only, but that's important. There's different elements that you can focus on to make decisions, but sometimes they can send you astray because they're not exactly the right areas to provide the decision making around. They're just an input in your decision making. So I think the key drivers for me are that initial gelling of you as individuals, and then also that you do see eye to eye in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and then from there I think you do get the benefits of the partner that you choose, and then you don't have a bad experience as you flow through that because, you have alignment in what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly right. I also feel like a lot of of what Hayley was sort of talking about was the concept around developing strong professional relationships with whoever you partner with, and making sure that it's not just, like I need you for this one thing right now. That's, again, same thing with clients and advisor relationships. It's about finding somebody who's going to provide that ongoing professional relationship over a long period of time, not just, flash in the pan.
Yeah, I agree.
What were your thoughts, Jason?
I think Con's really covered all the major points. I've really got nothing to add to this. So good job, Con.
Well done, Con. Good on you.
Thanks, Jace. That's the first time ever you've said that, isn't it? No.
We're breaking new ground here.
Yeah.
So, Jason, you've talked a lot about the sort of the technology solution that you've been working on. Perhaps if you wanted to give a bit of an overview of that and how that's going to look at providing scale to financial planners.
Yeah, absolutely. Our overall vision and goal is to provide better financial outcomes to more Australians in retirement. And to do that, we need to take a different approach than what traditionally is happening in the market. So we've covered a lot of interesting topics already, but we do know the price of face-to-face advice is going up. It's not coming down. The people that can afford that are very, very small in number. There's a real issue about how we provide better outcomes to more Australians. And the way we've approached that is to use the digital path through journeys, engaging with those clients on behalf of advisors to achieve that. So there's a couple of phases we're working on at the moment. There's one we're launching in the next couple of months, which is around looking at the advisor base and looking at the predominantly non-advised clients and how you can better engage with them. So we're providing a digital journey and investment solution to improve retirement outcomes from them, which is largely goal-based. So they can go through this journey, model their own goals in their own way, decide what they want to achieve at retirement in terms of a goal, and then execute that. And they can do that straight through processing as well. They can actually hit a button and select an investment solution. The SOA is generated electronically, and they can execute that directly without intervention from an advisor. However, our goal is to provide bionic advice. And that's the combination of this automation I've just described and human advice from a financial planner. And the way that happens is it's client driven. So the client can go as far as they want in terms of automating and then access and involve the advisor at the point that suits them. And what that means is we believe it's going to change the price points in the market for obtaining advice and making advice more accessible to a lot more Australians. So instead of the high prices of face-to-face, by cutting down time from 20 plus hours, we think in some cases this can go down to 2 or 3 hours max, and therefore the price of advice would dramatically come down as well. This also means, in a sense, that the advice practices might have to reorganize. Instead of being all face-to-face, they might have to provide telephony advice and other ways of communicating with those clients. But we think this is the way of the future. And we want to be much more retail focused. We're a retail environment superannuation, but we don't have all the digital tools to enable us to do that. And that's particularly true in retirement, where at the moment, there's very few options to move into retirement. The retirement advice is expensive. So we need a mechanism to actually rework the whole industry, reimagine how we can better engage with clients, how we take the anxiety out of approaching retirement where you don't have income or you have less income and you need to make your money last longer. How do you do that? And that's a very, very high stress thought for a lot of Australians. And that's what we want to achieve. We want to break through in this space and make it much easier.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you. So there's obviously a lot to this jigsaw puzzle. Obviously, in the overarching, providing advice at scale for planners to be able to offer that high touch service where they might be spending a lot of time in building and developing that long-term relationship, but they're actually in the back end, they could be using the technology in a way where they're reducing a lot of their time on the technical aspects of it, where the system actually creates the technical aspects and they're just delivering the relationship piece. Fantastic. I love the conversation around goals, by the way, and looking and focusing on those goal outcomes and making sure that's a real focus for the consumer and for them to be able to put their goals in and understand and then model their goals, I think is fantastic. So congratulations on what you're doing there. I'm looking forward to the release of that when it comes out. Now, Connor, why don't I get you to comment on, because you're sort of in a very different part of the business when it comes to what you've been working with planners and really sort of around that investment management piece around helping planners set up that outsourcing of their committees and but still in a very goals based way. Do you want to have a quick chat about what you've been working on?
Yeah, thanks, Fraser. Yeah, it's quite exciting to have what Jace is talking about on the digital side and the solutions we're trying to bring to market to help deliver advice a lot more easily. And then on our side, or the side that I'm more closely working with, is us really working with advisors who are looking to potentially outsource their investment capability. 10 to 15 years ago, investment capability was generally always in-house. It was tightly held. It was run by advisors. There wasn't as much rigor around it in some cases. And as technology has come into and afforded us the ability to automate certain aspects, it has changed that landscape. And so you do see a lot of, consultants, researchers, et cetera, providing services to advisors to create better outcomes for them as a business, and then obviously through to the end clients. You've also got licensees now who are taking models that they've run for their own advisors and now taking that to the external market, because there is the need. So even if advisors are not aligned to a licensee, there is potential need for the expertise that's there. And we're coming into that same space, or in that same space, since 2017, where we've been working with advisors to deliver a different outcome for them. And we're looking for advisors that have got a goals-based philosophy around what they do. I think the key benefit that advisors are starting to realize, and you're seeing over the last few years, a real acceleration in advisors, one, taking up managed accounts or SMAs, depending on how you want to look at it, outsourcing that particular capability, because we've seen it generates value for the business in terms of valuation. We've seen statistics where if a business has 75% or more of their clients in a managed account structure or an outsourced structure, profitability close to doubles in that particular firm. The early days of transition are the challenge, because you're moving a business and it is intensive to change from what you were doing to a new structure. But if you've decided to go down that particular path, the end goal is very clear, the advantage it can provide to one, you as a business, but also importantly to the end client. And advisors, in our proposition, to give you an example, they're gaining access to a global fund manager, depth of resource, real rigor around risk management in terms of what we're trying to achieve in portfolios. They've got direct access to portfolio managers. The portfolios have got a lot of structure around them in terms of understanding the probability of success, and we deliver ongoing analysis of that to particular clients. The portfolios are stress tested on an ongoing basis. And for us, we partner with, when I talk about partnering with advice firms, we build out those models together with them. We launch on the platform that they're comfortable with. And so there is that, and they can name those solutions what they want, right? So they're not picking up these things off the shelf. It's if the advice firm wants to have their name on that particular solution, some do, some don't. We provide that flexibility for us to do that. But the starting premise for us is obviously firms that want to outsource, because they're starting to understand, one, that clients don't necessarily value where the time is being spent by advisors. So, advisors will spend most of their time in the risk profiling, the working out the portfolios, how that needs to look, managing it on an ongoing basis. But the client doesn't actually care about that really. When you look at, again, surveys that have been done, they're worried about, how am I tracking? Am I going to meet my goals? What do I need to do to get there? It's not about the portfolio. And we as an investment industry is always focused on that. And that's where advisors, in many cases, they felt they added the most value. But it's the area that clients value the least. It's really the coaching and the journey. And so advisors that understand that outsourcing today is a much easier thing to go down, and also adds potentially so much value. And then from our perspective, if they're thinking more down that goals-based approach, so truly trying to understand what the client wants and how to deliver that, then, we're looking to partner with them. And we've got, solutions across a number of advice firms that we partner directly with to deliver, better outcomes for clients.
Wonderful. Thank you, Con, for setting that up. So certainly for covers a lot of the themes we've covered in this series around the idea of understanding what your business model is, what you want to do, then going ahead and finding the right professional relationships and outsourcing solutions to do that, and then of course the implementation of that, which is putting it in place and going through the steps so that you have that ongoing and long-term relationship. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for today, coming on and wrapping up this series. It's been great, and I really appreciate your comments. Obviously bringing different ideas and perspectives to it all. So I really appreciate it. If somebody wants to continue the conversation or find out more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
So from my perspective, they can reach out to us at Aberdeen Standard. So the easiest way, if they haven't got our contact details, is to just jump on the website and the Contact Us page. Otherwise, we do have a lot of relationships in the market. So just reach out to your contact or come to me directly, and more than happy to help.
Excellent. And Jason, we look forward to looking out for when some of the products that you've been developing finally come to fruition and become available for financial advisors to start using.
Thanks, Fraser. And I'm happy to come back and show you what it looks like when it's launched, if you like.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Fraser. Appreciate it.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the XY Advisor podcast as we wrap up the Scale Up series. And I'm joined by Em. G'day, Em.
Hey, Fraser. Happy Thursday.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Like it's coming towards the end of the week, end of the series, and almost time for Easter. But look, let's get into the shout out.
All right, let's round out this series with a great shout out to XY legend and advisor Dylan Martin. He sparked a discussion on the platform which has taken off. It's by far been the most popular conversation this week, and it centers around solving the problem or cracking the code on how to deliver holistic advice to younger clients or millennials without them being turned off by the cost of traditional advice. So plenty of advisors have been jumping in, giving Dylan some of their ideas or the way they're doing it in their business. Others were jumping in to agree and say, hey, we are still trying to figure this out in our business as well. And I think this is really a problem that we need to solve as an industry, trying to work out how we can get to that middle ground to be able to deliver great advice to those, especially those accumulators, those people who are at the start of their journey, even with the ever increasing costs to deliver that advice. So thank you for starting that conversation, Dylan. I hope you got plenty of gold nuggets out of it, and I hope everyone else did too, and keen to continue and see where it goes from here.
Yeah, what a great conversation, and certainly something that the industry is looking at the moment, the affordability of financial advice. So great work, Dylan. What a legend.